The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WTJX, its board, staff, or underwriters.
Welcome back to another episode of Recovery in Focus. I'm Adrienne Williams-Octalien. Our towns are the lifeblood of our community and economy. From building repairs to housing renovation and replacements, there are a myriad of projects that have been completed or are already in progress to remedy the blight of abandoned and derelict buildings. In this episode, we will discuss both locally and federally funded efforts to revitalize our towns and roadways. But first, here's the most recent news on recovery projects throughout the territory.
From the WTJX studio on St. Croix, I'm Larissa Ellis. A $163 million school project hit a major milestone recently, and our team was on the scene to witness it all. Reza Mir, Senior Project Manager for MCN Build, shared the details of this important first step, what's next, and the three-phase plan for completion of the new Arthur Richards Pre-K to 8 school on St. Croix.
We are at Arthur Richards Pre-K to 8 construction job site. Behind me, we are pouring slab for underground cistern, which will have capacity of 250,000 gallons of water. In upcoming month, we are going to construct retaining wall on the west and northwest of the site. After that, we are going to construct the utility building foundation, which will be located on this corner of the cistern location. Arthur Richards Pre-K to 8 school consists of 8 buildings in 3 phases. Phase 1 includes utility building, gym building, which will serve as shelter, commons building, and pre-K. Phase 2 will consist of kindergarten to and also admin building. And phase 3 will consist of 6 to 8 middle school, hardscape, landscape, and multi-purpose field area.
The Virgin Islands Fire and Emergency Services wrapped up construction in September on the Emile Berry Fire Station on St. Thomas. As promised earlier this year, contractor Caribbean Contracting Services completed the $387,000 project. Recently, representatives from the Office of Disaster Recovery, Public Assistance, Hazard Mitigation, VI Fire Service, and the contractor completed the project's final inspection to ensure all scoped items were executed as outlined. New Head Start facilities territory-wide are on the horizon. The Department of Human Services recently started demolition on 4 of 5 sites in August. Demolition is already complete at the Concordia site on St. Croix and Cruz Bay on St. John. The Lindbergh, Bolongo Bay, and Minetta Mitchell sites on St. Thomas are nearing completion. The final location at Annis Hope on St. Croix is scheduled to begin soon. Assistant Commissioner Carla Benjamin and Commissioner Kimberly Causey Gomez shared their vision for early modern childhood education facilities and their appreciation for the collaborative efforts of all stakeholders.
Our new facilities will feature modern classrooms, laundry facilities, kitchens, developmentally focused playgrounds with Head Start standard sleek shaded areas.
The Department of Human Services sincerely thanks our federal partners at the Administration of Children and Families, Office of Head Start, for approving the $42 million for us to improve our structures. Our local partner agencies, DPW, ODR, DPP, DPNR, OMB, and the Office of Governor, we could not do it without you. And of course, our design company, CPH, and our construction companies, J. Benton and Custom Builders. We thank you for the work that you do, but most of all, the families who trust us with their children to maximize their learning potential in our Head Start program.
The Department of Human Services estimates that all 5 projects will be completed by the end of 2024. Residents of Cruz Bay are also witnessing construction on parks in their neighborhood. We headed over to St. John to get the scoop.
This is Calvert White, and I am the Commissioner for the Department of Sports, Parks and Recreation, here with you today in St. John at the Cruz Bay Tennis Court facility. This facility, which was estimated about $225,000 project worksheet, is being done by Caribbean Contracting Services and is estimated to be completed at the end of October. As you can see, the first phase of this project was us resurfacing, restriping the tennis courts. Once we had a brand new surface, we came in and we did brand new fencing around the entire facility, giving it a brand new look. But you can't watch tennis unless you have somewhere to sit. So just starting today, the contractor started to do the new bleachers that are going to award and afford people to watch the games. Right down the road, you also have the Pine Piece basketball court that is also getting brand new fencing around the facility and new bleachers. I can't wait for these facilities to be finished so that we could turn them back over to the people of St. John.
Team DSPR is making progress on parks on St. Croix as well. A $1 million project to renovate the Reinhold Jackson Complex, also known as Wim Ballpark, is underway. Repairs to the stadium, recreation building, baseball field, press box, dugouts, playground, and tennis and basketball courts are all expected to be complete by the end of 2023. Temporary and permanent bridge repair projects are moving forward. Motorists navigating the Queen Mary Highway on St. Croix may have already hit the detour just west of the Superior Court. The $2.2 million project is just one of 4 bridge repair projects spearheaded by the Department of Public Works. We caught construction manager John Paul David on the job for the specifics.
This is one of those bridges that's going to be replaced with a temporary bridge. And when I say a temporary bridge, it's going to be a steel bridge that is going to accommodate 2 lanes of traffic, and it's going to be capable of withstanding loads of the large trucks that we commonly see on the island. In addition to this, we have to the south on the road, Route 64 that leads to the Melvin Evans Highway, that bridge is currently under construction. That bridge, in conjunction with the bridge on Midland Road adjacent to Seja Farms, and the bridge where construction is currently ongoing in Lagoon area in Gallows Bay area. Those 3 bridges will be constructed by VI Paving.
Business owners, contractors, and consultants interested in doing business with the recovery should visit the ODR website for an updated list of open bid announcements and detailed information. This month, the Virgin Islands Office of Disaster Recovery is seeking construction law services to support recovery and infrastructure projects territory-wide. The Virgin Islands Housing Authority, the Governor Wong F. Louis Hospital, and the Virgin Islands Department of Agriculture are all seeking licensed contractors for a range of construction projects in both the St. Croix and St. Thomas districts. For more information on these and other open bid announcements, as well as up-to-date news on all disaster recovery projects in the territory, log on to www.usviodr.com.
Thanks for that update, Larissa. Completion, demolition, and new construction. I call that continued visible progress. Well, we have a lot in store, so let's get started. I'd like to introduce our guests. Joining me on the show today is Commissioner Jean-Pierre Oriol of the Department of Planning and Natural Resources and Sean Krieger, the Director of the Virgin Islands State Historic Preservation Office. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. This is actually your second show.
Yes.
That just means that you have great things going on over there at the Department of Planning and Natural Resources. But we have a lot to unpack, starting with the revitalization efforts in the capital of the Virgin Islands of the United States, Charlotte Amalie. Our camera crew went into town to ask the public which buildings they think should be restored. Take a listen.
They're building them in Gold Street, and they need to get fixed because people doing a whole bunch of different stuff that they ain't supposed to be doing.
I don't know much about Tongue, because I don't live in Tongue. There's a lot of building and I pass around. I see in Tongue that probably can get refurbished. But I live in the country, and the country, for example, the police station in Tutu, that the government can fix that. We have another old building full of mildew, where they had the old school, and that can be fixed.
I would like to see the library restored.
The first thing I would like to see is the library, the old library downtown, to get, repaired and to make it into a museum. On the second question, I'd like to comment on the old Michelle Motel. It's a shame to see what's happening to that building, and the need to do something about it.
All right, gentlemen, it was actually pretty interesting to hear it, and one of the commenters went straight to DPNR on libraries, and I know you have a lot of great things going on with the libraries. Also spoke about some historic buildings, but we'll get into the nitty-gritty of all of that. But your responsibility at the Department of Planning and Natural Resources you are a regulator. But what else? There's a lot of things that's under your purview that you're responsible for, Commissioner.
Sure. So I think the public knows us primarily as being regulators and regulatory offices, but we are also the custodians and keepers of culture of the Virgin Islands as well. And so libraries are part of that culture. The forts are part of that culture. And so we are the custodians of the libraries and forts throughout the territory.
And so all of your libraries were damaged in the storms, and you're working on them. He specifically asked about Enid Ba.
Yes.
So where are we with Enid Ba?
So so we have completed the bid process. We have selected a vendor to do the repair work. So right now we are in the contracting phase of this project, and we anticipate by the end of October, early November, that we'll be finished with the contracting phase, and then we hope to see some start of the project construction either in December or January of next year.
All right, and you also have work going on at Charles Turnbull as well.
That's correct. So construction work has begun. It's a very big facility, one of our newest yet. In the government, but we are currently working with 4-Star Construction. They have already started the interior demolition, as well as complete removal and replacement of the roof is in store for that facility.
All right, so we have a lot going on with libraries across the territory, but specifically on St. Thomas, both of your libraries if Charles Turnbull is already in construction, and you're working on getting Enid Ba to work to start there as well once the contract is executed.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, kudos to you. And, he mentioned Goat Street. Now, as a Crucian, but I actually know where Goat Street is. So there's a lot of things going on Goat Street. The commenter said that we need to take care of. What are some of the things and your thoughts as to your responsibilities at the Department of Planning and Natural Resources?
Yes, thank you, Director. So Goat Street in Charlotte is Princeton's Garden. It continues also into what's also known as Glass Bottle Alley, but it's that entire street. The resident mentioned a lot of things taking place that's not allowed, most likely violations, changes being made that have not been reviewed by the Historic Preservation Committee. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely something as part of our regulatory role, we will definitely be looking into that. But in addition to that, as you mentioned, with the recovery efforts, we are running through the DPNR historic recovery projects, mm-hmm. and we're going to be touching sites throughout Charlotte and Raleigh.
Good, excellent. And I think one of the other commenters spoke about Mitchell Motel. Mm. And it has been an eyesore. I remember my days at the Housing Finance Authority, we were still looking for ways that we could repair it, looking for dollars. There's a lot of challenges with that facility, but recently Administrator Avery Lewis led a charge to clean up the area. amongst all of the comments, the concerns of the neighboring community, but there's some real challenges with getting that down. I know that your office at one point has been contacted about it as well.
Yes. So to start, yes, Administrator Lewis has run a recent cleanup on that facility. Again, it is rather unfortunate because, sometimes we clean it up, but then it gets back into a state of disrepair.
Yes.
But we have an assessment has been completed on the structure, and it turns out that it is not structurally sound and viable. And so the first thing that we're going to have to do, the very first thing we're going to have to do is some asbestos remediation, and then some demolition to remove the structure, and then it will be available. The site itself is about 2.5 acres, and so it'll be available to do something else with.
Right. I know the governor has actually been looking into identifying the funding to be able to take that down and utilizing some of the resources that we currently have. So, help is on the way and making sure that we can continue to revitalize that community and provide the peace that the residents in that area has been asking for. So in addition to that, though, SHPO is tracking like 7 projects in Savannah. Tell us more about, the aspects of those projects and where we are with them.
Right. So those projects you talk about are through our historic recovery program. And it's a process, it has to go through a number of approvals, both on the local level, but nationally through the National Park Service. So these are homes that were damaged through the 2017 hurricanes. And the damages range from, as you could imagine, roof to windows and doors, siding. And so we're going to be working and helping to recover those properties.
And I'm sure that we're doing so, putting back all of the historic aspects of the design of those homes as well.
Absolutely. That is key number one, is making sure that the historic integrity of those properties are maintained while we recover them.
Yes. Well, when we talk about historic preservation, there's a lot of controversy as to the cost of repairing homes to these historic standards, which is really preventing a lot of homeowners or property owners to do the work. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting. So, the materials being used, it's nothing no more different than what we have today. And we're using standard materials. It's lime, cement, wood. The key is the craftsmanship and how those materials are utilized in restoring the properties. And that is sometimes the bigger challenge. It's getting the skills, the contractors, the craftsmen. But that is why we're working. We're continually working with our contractors to provide the technical guidance to make sure that those misconceptions or perhaps, belief that it's really that exhaustive is not, so in that sense, try to keep that to a bay as much as possible.
All right, I know so some intricacies goes into these Danish style homes, and sometimes it's very expensive, but we've been looking at ways to address those concerns and create opportunity for us to repair our towns. And talking about our towns, the millions of federal recovery dollars are also being spent to restore government buildings. Folks are saying, okay, yay, we're talking about homes, but what about the government buildings, JP? So, and making sure that we as a government do our part. The Emil Griffith Ballpark, of course, everyone's waiting. There's a lot of intramural games that usually happens there as governmental leagues in the Emil Griffith Ballpark. I know the Centomians are missing the ballpark. So there's a lot of work that's going on there. They've redone all of the fencing, working on the lighting, and anticipating that project will come back online shortly. The press box has been changed from wood to concrete. So it's all about resiliency and making sure that we have that back on track. Other projects, the Omar Brown Fire Station. Now, we know the fire stations have names. Exactly where is Omar Brown?
So Omar Brown is in our Polyberg neighborhood. Some may know it as Hotel Company, which was formerly located at Fort Christian National Historic Landmark Site. Yeah, those are our former tenants, neighbors for many years.
Good. So, work has been done on that as well. I think we're really, really happy about the Charlotte Kimmelman Cancer Institute
Absolutely.
being back.
Absolutely.
We're working, the contract has been executed with J. Benton Construction, so work is about to be started. Now, when contracts are executed, you still have a lot of, you gentlemen have to still do some things there. So you're your role now. So let's say that the hospital has executed this contract. What's the next step? And this is a test.
The contract being executed now, I mean, you get the notice to proceed. And then we actually start to see shovels in the ground and activity taking place. So where DPNR role is to ensure that the contractors are actually building to code. And we have the requirement of maintaining that public health and safety, making sure that the contractors are requesting their inspections, electrical, plumbing, mechanical, and due to the volume being increased, DPNR has also executed some contracts with some third-party inspectors. That way, we don't have to bear the brunt of all of that ourselves, but rather we're able to manage the load effectively as more projects come online.
That is absolutely critical. And so the very first thing, of course, we have to get the permits in order to get the work done, because you can't start these projects without permits, and you do your due diligence. If I continue my track, there's still the Sugar Estate Head Start. That is also work that's going to be done there. The Swan Annex facility as well is also on the radar for work to be done. And we're really, really proud about the Queen Louise apartments that the VI Housing Finance Authority, they tore down, getting ready to rebuild, and making sure that we continue all the work that's going on in the towns. That's just the town area, and we've spoken about so many different projects. There's some discrepancy. Where does town begin and where town ends?
Okay, so if we're talking about the official city limits of Charlotte Amalie, on the eastern side, it's Centerline Road near Lockhart's Garden, and it goes all the way to the west, roughly by the Banco Popular banking center. And then northwise, it would be like up into the hills just below Marfley, and then you've got the water line. That's your official city limits. The metropolitan area stretches all into Sobeys and by the airport.
Okay, so if you're from town, where do you live when you can't say you're from town anymore?
Well,
not just the city limits, not saying what's on the map.
Right.
What's in the schoolyard?
Yeah.
So like for us on St. Croix, we're in Frederickstead. Frederickstead usually stops somewhere like when you get to Grove, you don't say it's Frederickstead, you're Grove. But
That's
everything else that way.
That's right.
On the west side. But Grove is far up. When you start to go a little further, then it's not really west. So what's said in the schoolyard?
Well, I don't know what Commissioner, but I would say from the time you start heading up Rappoon Hill, you are getting out of town.
Town, in country.
Yeah.
All right. So where are you from, JP?
Me, I live south, so I out of town.
You're out of town. Okay.
I grew up south, and I grew up south and east, so out of town.
All right.
Yeah.
So Cruz Bay has also seen an uptick in construction as well, in addition to the continuation of undergrounding work on St. John and the completion of several road projects. The library was opened. So that was your first library, Commissioner, that you completed.
Yes, so very pleased. Back in June, we held a ribbon cutting. We had completed a lot of the construction work. However, there was a lot more of the intricacies as it relates to the operation of a library that needed to come online. It took us a little bit of time to get those systems back up and running, seeing as the library really hadn't been in operation since 2018.
Wow.
But we have some dedicated staff over there. I'm very pleased to say that they are also native St. Johnians. So, they live on St. John, they work on St. John. It's not a matter of transportation every day. And we opened officially last Wednesday. And the hours for the Sproul Library are Tuesday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And on Saturdays, we will be open from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Wanted to make sure that we get those later hours as well as Saturdays in for the people of St. John.
Well, they've been asking for, you heard when we went got on the men on the street, they were like, libraries are important. To all of you who say that libraries are no longer needed, we have the evidence to prove differently. But we're also looking at other projects, St. John, Fish Bay, Watershed. So there's some road projects as well that DPW Commissioner Gabriel and his team are working on. And the Myra Keating Clinic as well. The design work is continuing there, and Morris de Castro in the Cruz Bay area. These are all facilities that are currently in design. That work is already getting ready to get started. It's designed, then we go out to bid, get permits, and then we make sure that the work gets started.
Can I plug one more?
Of course.
So DPNR's St. John office is currently contracted and in construction. And so we are hoping that if all goes well, supplies, everything, that we will be opening the DPNR St. John office by January 2024.
Yeah, we wrote it down and you heard it here first. January 2024, residents of St. John, you don't have to get on a boat to come to St. Thomas. DPNR is going to have a presence, reopen their presence on St. John so that you can continue to conduct business. Because as we mentioned, there's a lot of projects and there's a lot of activity that's going on St. John, and you need to have that presence. So despite the many recovery projects, there's still a gap. When you drive through our towns, there's still so much disrepair. Governor Bryan recently held a town hall meeting to address this issue. And we spoke to his chief of staff, Carl Knight, for details on the initiative designed to support the restoration of derelict and abandoned buildings in our towns. So let's take a listen.
As we go through the hurricane recovery process, we have become increasingly concerned with the amount of derelict and abandoned structures throughout our territory, especially at a time when folks are looking for affordable rentals, they're looking for affordable home ownership opportunities. We have tons of funds for housing, but no inventory to provide to people. We have rental assistance programs, home ownership assistance programs, but none of that does any good if there are actually no homes available. So we are looking at some of the derelict and abandoned properties that have been caused by not just the recent storms of 2017, but you can go as far back as the Hurricane Hugo of 1989. You can look at the more recent economic disasters that we've had, such as the closure of the refinery on St. Croix, the Great Recession, most recently the pandemic years. So we are looking at an out-migration of Virgin Islanders that are leaving behind abandoned properties that are derelict and now becoming dilapidated. Governor Bryan is hoping to partner with nonprofit organizations to actually do something about that and to reverse that blight in our neighborhoods and our communities. He's hoping that nonprofit organizations will step forward and assist property owners in rehabbing these properties, assist them by putting in place the mechanisms to make these properties viable again for home ownership or even commercial activity.
All right. Well, those are very lofty goals, but I actually think that it can be done. We want to make sure that our towns are just representative of how the Virgin Islands, its culture and its people. I know that is a challenge that you have here at a historic preservation office that you constantly work at.
Yes, yes.
And where we talk about, so what are your thoughts on the initiative that's being proposed by Governor Bryan?
So I think that this is a viable solution for the territory. I know that there are concerns about this being a land grab, that gentrification will come as a result of this. I think that the community, they do have their fears, but I think to understand the nuances of the project, and a couple of them were stated at the town halls, but to just go over two. One is that there is no transfer of property. Mm-hmm. And I think that the governor and his team did a very good job in saying that over and over and over again. I think we need to understand that the reason why we're partnering with nonprofits is because nonprofits do not want to hold these assets. Right? So they're there to serve as the agents for the owners and be the ones who are now dealing with the developers who will redevelop the property. I think the second thing that the community needs to realize also is the funding source is a very key component of this. Because it is HUD funding focuses on low to moderate income families. And so the properties cannot be redeveloped and then now we're charging above market value rents at $3,000, $4,000 for a one bedroom. That can't happen because the source of funding to do this is going to be HUD funding. And so I think if people understand the nuances of the programs, I hope that it will alleviate their fears. And then at the same time, we get the redevelopment that we need because housing currently is in a crisis. We have very limited availability to start from scratch. And so it would be much, much better, not only for the economy, but even for the cost of what we have to do for us to be able to redevelop some of these existing buildings and put Virgin Islanders back inside of them. We need the workforce here as much as possible.
Absolutely. I cannot disagree, and I know you can't either. You know, when we start to talk about the towns and revitalizing our towns and the buildings, before, you know, and you could also chime in from a historic perspective, that folks lived and worked in the town areas. We've seen now where a lot of our town areas that once the business closes down and everyone leaves, there's nothing going on. And if you have folks living, if you need a bottle of milk or if you need anything, there's stores, there's actual activity that continues. You know, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I mean, that is what gives the vitality to any city is the residences. As you said, it doesn't just shut down at 5 o'clock. And historically, we've had that model. Town, live, you know, shop owner, shop below, residents on top. And I think that's important. You know, there's a national or worldwide movement talking about 15-minute cities, right? And what's the focus of that is that everything is within 15 minutes, you know, your corner store and everything. We want that, but we want it to also at a high quality of life. You know, we want to make sure that things are comfortable for residents. And, you know, when you talk about historic preservation, it's the ultimate renewal process. I mean, we're not demolishing structures, we're restoring them. And that's key. We want to do it to the proper standards.
Right. You know, even if you go in many states, you see where the shopping that's created right there with residential living and all of the supporting businesses there for that community. So I think that's the vision, making sure that we can put back the aesthetics to our towns, rebuild and help a lot of these homes that are mired in issues relative to families that have not been able to align, and making sure that we move this forward. So, you know, we're continuing to push to make sure that, yes, we can get our towns back to what they're supposed to be.
Yeah, and you know, and I'll add to that, I think one of the answers for gentrification is that part of this effort is to empower those individuals that have the interest and the ability to do it, but they may not have had the funding.
Right, yes. That's one of the biggest issues that we have. The money to actually get it done. We've seen buildings that are in disrepair. So, you know, if the government house is also looking for suggestions, comments while they're in the process of drafting this to go down to the legislature. So if you're interested in this, make your voice heard and submit all the information or your comments, your questions to make sure that this bill and this piece of legislation can get the support to move forward. Well, we also spoke to residents in the Christiansted area to get their thoughts on buildings they would like to see restored. All right, take a look at it. I know you guys are from St. Thomas, so listen up.
The building in town that I would like to see restored is the Charles Harriott Hospital, so we can have 2 functional hospitals instead of 1 to take care of the gun violence that are going on in the Virgin Islands, suicidal rates, and, you know, medical circumstances.
I would say the library for sure is one of the places that we need to have always open for the youth and a lot of people who want to do adult education as well to get informed. But that's for sure on my mind. Okay. And also I am really thankful and so delighted that the Episcopal Church, St. John's, right there next to Sings, that has been refurbished and that the whole thing is being done and it's pretty and awesome. And it's a great establishment, so I'm glad about that too.
But Commissioner, you just can't get away. You just asked this question, and they must speak about the libraries. And they started off speaking about the Charles Harwood Medical Complex that is currently in demolition, and we're seeing also that the legislation and the law be named after Donna Christensen, and that's beautiful. And we should see construction starting on that Charles Harwood facility next year. And I was born there, so it'll be really, you've seen the renderings for it and the vision that Commissioner Encarnacion and her team has for it. It is actually going to be transformational. But our libraries, Florence Williams Library, you're on that, all over that.
Yes. So Florence Williams has been in construction for the better part of a year now, and we are pleased. Right now, we are targeting the opening for the end of October.
Great.
So there is a little bit of some punch list items that we need to wrap up on the interior, but we're excited that we're ready to go. We're once again going to restore services in the Christiansted area, and it will be coming sooner rather than later. And again, we plan on offering services Tuesday through Saturday, maximizing the ability for the community to use the facility.
That's excellent. And I heard that you get a secret that you're going to share at the opening. So just doing things a little differently than you've traditionally done it where libraries are concerned.
Yes, we want to expand how we offer our services to the community. And so when we are getting ready for the opening, we're going to have something special for the community that week.
All right, hint, hint, you got to pay attention to this. When the Florence Williams Library is going to be open the end of October, and we're going to have an announcement from the Department of Planning and Natural Resources. There's still also a lot of work that's going on with Christiansted with the sewer line replacement project that the Waste Management Authority is doing. And it's also going to be piggybacked with work for undergrounding for Christiansted, as well with the Water and Power Authority for power lines. As then we're also seeing DPW, Commissioner Gabriel and his team, they're going to be rolling in with work to be done, paving the roads after it's all dug up in Christiansted Town. You can't have a nice town with raggedy roads, right?
That's right.
That's right. So DPW completed road work in Frederiksted also, and they're scheduled to begin phase 2 repairs soon. Millions of dollars have already gone into revitalizing Frederiksted, and there's more to come in that area. And that big project that everyone asks about, we have Tawana Nicholas, our chief engineer from the Department of Public Works. She's going to give us an update on that project. Take a listen.
We're here today at the Polly Joseph Stadium Sports Complex project, where this project is a big part of the Frederiksted Town revitalization. Our contractor is GEC, and to date, he has completed the superstructure of the stadium and started its building elements. The floor slab and foundation is complete, the perimeter walls, the towers with the iconic red roofs, as well as the upper floor, the top floor for the upper concourse is all complete. Currently, we're working on the bleachers, threads, and risers, where the left field bleacher side is complete, and we're working on the right field bleacher side with the rebar, forms, and continuous pours. We're also working on the interior walls, and we've recently started the bases for the outfield light poles. Our next steps is to complete all of these activities and then working on the electrical and the plumbing. The Department of Public Works is committed to completing this project. We work closely with the contractor, along with Sports Park and Recreation and the Office of Disaster Recovery. We look forward to turning this project over to the community, where we can watch many games in the future with our friends and family.
Well, you know, this project is long awaited, and your team had a significant role for a time period in there. The Polly Joseph project had to be stopped because of the flooding and addressing concerns relative to the waterways. Let's share a little bit about.
Sure. So, you know, one of the key aspects of all construction is you want to minimize loss and minimize risk. And so, you know, if we're building more resiliently, then we have to make sure that we know where our floodways are and minimize those flood risks. So Polly Joseph is in a floodway. And so there were some things construction-wise that can be done to mitigate against that, any repetitive loss or risk. And working with our partners in FEMA, I know that it was a protracted permitting process, particularly for something called the CLOMAR that needed to get approved. But once we were able to settle a lot of those concerns, then we could pour the slab and we could start the construction. So really happy and pleased with the partnership between DPW, DPNR in terms of reviewing the plans and working with the contractors and making sure that we were able to get, you know, to the vertical construction that we see today.
Yes, and you know, you said CLOMAR, that's a conditional letter of map revision that's issued by FEMA. So you know, there's a lot of behind the scenes things that happen in order to get projects moving and keep them moving. And in the town area as well, Frederiksted town, you have Fort Frederick and another library. So let's start about Fort Frederick. Where are we with that project?
So Fort Frederick is currently in design. We are working with our design specialists, the Springline Architects. I would say we're about 40% completed. The main thing that we're seeing right now is bringing or making sure, ensuring code compliance when it comes to these older buildings. And so it becomes challenging in terms of balancing full code compliance with preservation of a historic structure. And so it has been quite a challenge. And I think that we are hoping to get to the end of the design phase by January of next year as well.
All right. So, Sean, did you put a lot of extra requirements in there? I noticed he said it's been very challenging. You have building permits, you have SHPO. I need to know, was there a fight going on?
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay.
You know, Commissioner is our State Historic Preservation Officer, so it helps to have your in-house expertise in preservation. But it's like Commissioner said, it's to strike that balance to making sure that we're preserving the heritage of the fort while still making it a safe and, you know, productive facility for our residences and, most importantly, our visitors.
Yes.
It's a major attraction as part of our tourism product.
All right. So I'm going to come back to you for a historical fact about Fort Frederick.
All right.
But let's talk about the other library in Frederiksted, after Lee Peterson.
Yes, so we're very pleased that officially we kicked off that project with the contractor last week as well. I think if anybody is driving by, you should be able to see the recovery sign. So we did a walkthrough with the construction team, Heights Construction. We are just right now in mobilization, and that project will be about a 6-month project. But there are some things that were not in the original contract, but we want to make sure that we're upgrading for the services to the community. So we are awaiting an additional award that DPNR has applied for, and hopefully when received, we can do some contract modifications as well.
Okay, so I guess you some additional, so not only just the FEMA funding, the federal dollars, that you have to find additional dollars to be able to get the facilities back to exactly where we need them to be. I think that's something that we have to regularly share, that although you have the federal dollars, they always come with a clear scope of what's eligible or what's not.
Right.
And if it's anything that's not eligible for that funding, we need to make sure that you go out and find some additional funds so they could actually look like we fixed the building, right?
That's correct.
Because if they didn't give you funding for this chair, but they gave you funding for these 2 chairs, but we can't say we fixed it if we don't fix this chair, right?
That's correct.
So that's critical. So kudos to you and your team for recognizing that those facilities need to get back to that level that we expect them to be. And Athalie, I'm going to come back to your fun facts or historical facts. Fort Frederick, and just let's tell the audience something that we should know about Fort Frederick.
Well, we should know, most importantly, it was the site of the final stance for emancipation here in St. Croix, 1848. That's a significant and very important role that it played. But some people may not know from a national standpoint, Fort Frederick is recognized as one of the first jurisdictional places to recognize the American flag.
Oh.
Yeah, a ship was passing by, they were flying the Stars and Stripes, and Fort Frederick fired off a cannon in salute. So that's part of our National Historic Landmark status. That is one of the things that's highlighted about the fort.
All right, you heard it here. Did you know that?
I did not.
What? I love it. This is yes, this is actually, the towns and everything that comes into our towns, and this is actually a very, very special place.
It is.
Not because I'm from the west side, but it's the absolute
Freedom City?
Freedom City, Frederickstead. There's a lot of other projects that's going on there as well. There are WIC building. There's a new WIC building that is being developed in Frederickstead, and we're going to get some lighting on that waterfront. There's a lot of activity that's planned for Christmas time, and we want to make sure that all the lights are working in Frederickstead, and the Department of Sports, Parks, and Recreation not only clean up that area every morning, but they are also working to make sure that all of the lights are done, as well as the waterfront. All of the chains are redone. If you had an opportunity to drive down by the Marley housing community, you would see that all of that chain work has been done and the benches have been refurbished. I'm just really getting a waterfront. Strand Street is a beautiful.
It is.
Beautiful. I always say it rivals any. If you go to any cruise ship and you pull up in the harbor, I bet there's nothing else, no other area that's as beautiful as Frederickstead. Don't debate me.
Yeah.
None there, right?
I'm good.
Not even St. Thomas.
Nope.
Don't debate me.
Nope.
Okay. I'll say the heart of Frederickstead is one of the Virgin Islands Housing Finance Authority's public housing development restoration is already in progress. Let's get an update.
Good day. I'm Nicole Johnson, Manager of Rental Properties at the Virgin Islands Housing Finance Authority. I'm standing here on location at the Fritz Louette's Homes, or as it is affectionately known, Lagoon Street Complex, here in the heart of Frederickstead, St. Croix. This community consists of 24 two-bedroom units and 36 three-bedroom units, and is a part of VIHFA's multifamily subsidized housing portfolio. This community is currently undergoing rehabilitation of its building's interior and exterior, and is funded in the amount of $2.3 million in FEMA's public assistance grants. This rehabilitation project is currently in its first phase, with 24 of the 60 units being renovated. Improvements include window facade remodeling, stairwells, handrails, and guardrail replacements, wind retrofit of windows and doors, and unit upgrades to its interiors. Celestine Construction, the contractor of choice, is currently on the job with a slated construction completion date of end of year 2024. Once the rehabilitation of the first two buildings are complete, existing residents of the untouched buildings will be transferred to the newly renovated units to allow for continuity onto phase 2. Once the entire project is complete, new applicants will have the opportunity to be leased up by their placement on the waiting list.
All right, well, the homes, housing in the towns as well is very critical. I know the Fritz Louette's housing community there that she spoke about, even the historical aspect to it. Like, it's not everything in the town is subject to, or is that correct? Everything in our towns is subject to state historic preservation requirements?
Yeah, if it's using federal funds. In the case of Fitz-Loretz, it's also in our historic district. So everything in the district goes through the Historic Preservation Committee. Fitz-Loretz, its project was federally funded as part of the National Historic Preservation Act. We do a Section 106 review that's conducted by SHPA and the federal entity and the local jurisdiction.
All right, well, there's lots to do. We're absolutely proud of Walter I.M. Hodge. Phase 1 is nearing completion, and the residents have already been transferred into new units. The construction is on schedule, and we expect to have a grand opening in October. So much more to come on that. This conversation is not just about fixing buildings. Some of these locations have historical and cultural ties, as we spoke about. And the residents of St. Croix and St. Thomas, they had some viewpoints about the significant aspect of rebuilding our towns. Take a listen.
The buildings I would like to see refurbished are all that are in East and West. The reason why is because a lot of businesses that were up and running when I was younger are now abandoned, and it's hard not having like culture and history to display or show to my children.
Well, standing here in downtown Charlotte Amalia, I think that the one that sits out the most at this time is Hotel 1829. There's been quite a bit of restoration in the downtown area, which is so beautiful. And I thank Historic Preservation and all who played a great hand in making it this way. But as I look up, I see Hotel 1829 needs a bit of work on it.
All right, well, there's a lot of very known buildings there. I'm just going to, just touch on a few of them. The Hotel 1829, that's a critical building when you talk about St. Thomas. An iconic building.
It is, yes. It's one of our historic hotels, and it had been up and running for a number of years, prior to the hurricanes. It's been closed. That property is also in transition. But yeah, we definitely look forward to seeing that being restored and put back into use.
And it's
1829. Okay. Hotel 1829.
Hotel 1829.
All right.
Yeah.
And the Lutheran Church as well? Those...
Yes. One of our historic recovery projects. As a matter of fact, Commissioner Oriel had the pleasure of awarding them a check recently for their recovery efforts.
Yeah, they were our first recipient of the maximum allowable amount, $200,000, to assist them with their repairs. So, very pleased with being able to offer this, non-match required grant program. The only thing I wish is that we had more to offer.
Yes, yeah. And then also on St. Croix, the Dorsch building as well.
That's correct. It's my understanding Dorsch is selected a contractor, and so we should be seeing their repairs started.
And what about the Apothecary Hall? You can't talk about abandoned derelict buildings unless you talk about the Apothecary Hall.
So I know that they have been selected through our process.
Correct.
I think that their final federal approval is under review right now, but they should also be receiving an award from the department definitely before the end of this calendar year.
Excellent. Well, the VI Housing Finance Authority is supporting revitalization efforts by creating opportunities to renovate properties in our towns. We spoke with Mr. Donnie Dorsett, who shed some light on the progress towards awarding those funds.
We did several town hall meetings, both online as well as in person on all 3 islands. We got an overwhelming response. The deadline was May 15th, and we got 77 applications consisting of building facade, small business recovery grants, and also small business eligible training provider. So what we've done since we've collected these applications is basically started a review process. We started in June, continued on in July, and also we're doing it in September. Thus far, we've had many sessions, approximately 8 sessions, reviewing the applications. We keep in contact with the applicants. We've sent them communication that we received their applications. We also told them that we requested a 90-day period to review the applications. We are looking forward and committed to helping our territory, improving our downtowns, our small businesses, and training those small businesses to become more economic resilient during a natural or man-made disaster. Therefore, we will continue to provide updates to you as the time goes on, and we look forward, hopefully by the end of this year, to announce our first individuals who have received neighborhood revitalization disaster recovery funding.
Well, thank you for that. You know, the Economic Development Authority isn't missing a beat either. They have a program to support businesses and economic recovery. Wayne Biggs, our Chief Executive Officer, tells us a lot more.
The Enterprise Zone Commission, a division within the authority, is charged with revitalizing once vibrant towns and communities that are now considered distressed. The 4 Enterprise Zone areas are the towns of Christiansted and Frederiksted, and the Savannah Down Street area and the Garden Street Up Street area in St. Thomas. The Enterprise Zone provides tax incentives and tax credits to revitalize buildings within these zones. Individuals can get up to 90% reductions on gross receipt tax and revenues depending on the type of business that they're in. They can also receive tax credits for revitalizing those buildings. If you want to find out more information about the Enterprise Zone, please go to our website, www.usvieda.org.
Well, you've heard about all of the departments and all of the programs that we have towards revitalizing our towns and addressing abandoned and derelict buildings. It was an absolute pleasure having both of you with me today, and we'll continue to work to push and get our towns back to what we want them to be. So that's a wrap for us, folks. If you or someone you know has a property in one of our towns that is in need of repair, we hope this program has been beneficial for you. We appreciate all of you for tuning in, joining us for our next episode of Recovery in Focus. For more information, find us online at usviodr.com. You can also keep the discussion going at facebook.com/WTJX. Thank you for watching. We'll continue to build a legacy of resilience.